Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Hello and Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to today's DAF. Bava Metzia Kuf Beis. We are holding 7 lines from the top of the Amid. Hazevel shel balabayis. A fellow rented a home inside a yard. If there's any zevel, any animal waste lying in that yard, it belongs to the landlord. The only thing the tenant has a right to is the ashes produced by his cooking, by his using of the oven and the range. So the animal waste, the zevel, goes back to the balabais. Now, what exactly, where did this zevel originate from? So firstly, whose chatzar is this? Who's using the chatzar? Is it something which was also included in the rental? And likewise, the animals that produce this waste, right, the oxen, whatever, belong to Shimon, the fellow who rented the premises. So why are you giving the waste to the balabais? It's all Shimon's, right? Apparently we're speaking that the chatzar was never included in Shimon's rental. It still belongs to the landlord, to Reuven. And likewise, the animal that produced this belong to the masker, to the landlord, to Reuven. Then pshita. Then obviously, of course, why would Shimon have any right to these to this material? Says the Gemara, Tzricha must be speaking as follows: B'chatzar de masker, v'turei de asum alma. The property, the chatzar, was not included in the rental agreement. It belongs to Reuven, but the animals have arrived from elsewhere. So there are random animals walking through the place, and they produced this waste. And the point of the Mishnah is that the owner of those animals typically disregard the waste produced by their animals. Rashi says, "Stam galolim." This waste is afkurim, afkurin. People are just, okay with leaving it alone, and it becomes hefker. In which case, it automatically reverts to Reuven's ownership because he is the landowner. He's the fellow who owns this property, this chatzar. It's his chatzar. Right? So the random animals came by and produced this waste, and therefore it belongs to the Baal HaChatzah, to Reuven, and not to Shimon, the fellow who rented the area. This is the right to Rabbi Yisrael Chanina. Don't worry, Chanina chatzera shel adam koina l'shli midaytei. If something falls into your property, even without your knowledge, it automatically belongs to you. A person's property is like an extension of himself. So it belongs to Reuven. And Shimon, the renter, cannot approach this material and pick it up for himself. Meisvei comes a kasha on this point. This halacha that you can be kaina with a chatzar without your knowledge. Meisvei, im amar kol metzias sheyavayu l'seichei hayom. A fellow declares as follows: any lost item which finds its way into my property, tikna li chatzeri, I want my chatzar to be kaina on my behalf. It doesn't work. Why not? If we're going to adopt this halach of Rabbi Yisrael Chanina, who says a chatzar automatically acquires for you, so in this case, why doesn't he get it? Says the Gemara was speaking, it's not a secure chatzar. It's not guarded. So this halacha cannot apply. You're only kind of inside a chatzar, which is a safe and secure, gated chatzar. Asks Gemara Yachi, if that's the type of chatzar that we're speaking, insecure chatzar, Eima seifa. So if it's unsecure, so how could you understand the next halacha in the Brisa? The Brisa says that if it became known that people are speaking, there are some items that fell into that person's property, then that person is going to be kaineh through his chatzar. What's the difference? If his chatzar is unsecured, who cares if people are aware of the presence of Metzias in your chatzar? Who cares? Answers the Gemara. The answer is, once people have already adopted that mindset that there are Metzias, there are items sitting in the person's chatzar, it becomes like common knowledge. So mibdo b'dili in sheminei, people are just gonna keep away from the aveda. People are going to be concerned, says Rabbi Chananel, that the authorities might catch up with them and accuse them of taking something that doesn't belong. So basically, once it becomes public knowledge, people just back off. Vaha, listen to this, and here's the catch. This now transforms the status of the chatzar from unsecure to secure. What epitomizes security? Protection, right? It is, by default, a protected entity because people are going to keep away. Which now enables the owner to use it to be kind. Beautiful. So bottom line, the Mishnah which says the zevel belongs to the masker is speaking that it's a chatzar mishtameres, and the animals that produce this waste came from elsewhere, so now the owner is kaineh by way of his chatzar, and the seicher, the renter, has to keep away. Meisvei comes a kash. Zevel hayetze min atanur u'min. So the Brisa says, any remnants from his oven, from his ashes, belongs to the tenant. Va'kolet min ha'avir, and likewise, if he grabs hold of a utensil and affixes it to the area of the animal which produces the waste, and he allows the glow and the waste to fill his container. So it was held up in the air like that, not on the chatzar, but up in the air, right at the animal. So all this material belongs to the soicher. The Brisa continues, however, zevel, which is sitting in the barn, in the chatzar, shel balabai, belongs to the landlord. Asks the Gemara, why are we giving some of this material to the renter? If we're going to adopt that halacha mentioned before, the Amar Chatzera Shel Adam, anything in your chatzar belongs to you, well, it belongs to Reuben, the landlord. Even if Shimon fills his container directly from the animal, why does that material belong to him? Aver Chatzeru. After all, it's sitting in the airspace of this chatzar, which was not really rented to Shimon. It was still Reuben's. And just as the floor of the chatzar is kaineh for the owner, on behalf of the owner, likewise the airspace is part and parcel of the area, right? Amar Abaye b'mad b'kli b'shulei para. Says Abaye, rather than just catching it mid-air, what happened was he actually stuck the container flush with the animal and took it and filled this container directly from the animal. So the zevel, the waste, never actually traversed the airspace of the chatzar. So the masker is not zeicha. Rather, the seicher, the baal hakli, is zeicha in that material. Rava Amar, no. Even if you just caught it mid-air, it would still have the same status. Because something which enters airspace in a manner where it's not going to land down below, it's just going to sort of fly through, that airspace is not serving the ground below. Right? The whole point of airspace is it's creating space for the ground below. It's enhancing the usage area of the ground below. But here, when it's just flying right through horizontally, it's never going to land. So that avir cannot serve as an extension of the land below. It's not considered landed. So likewise now, okay, since the material is dropping down, but he comes in there with his kli, so practically it was never going to land down below. It's going to land in the kli. So the Baal HaChatzar, the masker Reuben, cannot lay claim to this material. Rava? Is this concept so clear to Rava that Aver, which was never intended for landing, cannot serve the ground below, cannot be perceived as an extension of the property below it? It would seem from a different discussion that Rava wasn't clear about this point. Rava had a question. Zorak Arnaki bepesach zeh. Okay, so a fellow picks up his wallet and says, look, Hefker, right? Give me it away. And he throws it through a house. Zorak Arnaki bepesach zeh. He throws it through this window with such force that it's going to go straight through the other window on the other side and head out of the house. So basically just flying through the airspace of the house. Does that homeowner lay claim to this item because it entered his airspace? Yes or no? So yeah, it was through his airspace, but it was never really going to land in that room. It was thrown in with such force that it was just going to fly straight through, right? Do we still treat it as though it landed? Meaning, do we perceive the airspace of that room as part of the room, and it's considered as though it landed on the floor? Or do we say no, it's not considered part of that room? So Rava wasn't clear about this point. And if that's the case, why in the story with the animal waste does Rava say, well, if he places his container beneath the animal, it belongs to him, and we ignore the Bala Chatzar, because although it entered his airspace, but it was never meant to land, well, this point is not so clear, as we see in the other halacha. Well, it says there's a big difference between the two cases. Look, in the case of the wallet, true, it was tossed in with such force that it wasn't really going to land, but practically it wasn't going to land, but physically there was nothing between the wallet and the floor beneath it. It was uninterrupted airspace. So there you can speculate, perhaps it's still considered as though it's landed. Here he placed this container in between the two entities, between the ground below it and the waste above it. So here it's a bit different. So combined with the fact that it wasn't really going to land because of this container, and the fact that there is a physical barrier between the material and the ground below, we can fully understand Rava's halacha that the property owner, beneath it doesn't lay any claim to this material, rather belongs to this seicher. Now the Brisa added another point. The Brisa mentioned v'shabarefes v'shabachatzer hari'elu shabalabais. The zevel sitting in the refes and the chatzer belong to the balabais tarti. Why discuss two of the same cases? Basically, you're saying that if something was not really part of the rental, wasn't included in the rental agreement, so anything found in that location belongs to the balabais. And we're just citing two repetitious examples, right? Shabarefes, Shabachatzer, right? It's just two examples of the same point. Amar Abaye Amar, no, it means like this. V'shabarefes Shabachatzer. Hari'elu Shabalabais. So the Gemara figured that the Brisa is discussing two examples of areas which were not included in the rental: a barn and or a courtyard. So the question was, why you mentioned two exactly the same cases? The answer is like this: he did give him the chutzner as part of his rental. The point of the Brisa is that the barn situated in that chutzner is a different entity and not included in the agreement. The zevel found in the barn, which was not included in the rental, Sheba Chatzar, which is situated in the Chatzar, which is part of the rental, but the barn is a separate entity, and therefore Harei L'Shabalabayis, it belongs to the owner. Amar Rav Ashi Zosamer, so we learn from here, Hamasker Chaser Stam, person leases his Chatzar without stipulating, Lo Yisker Refa Sheba, and there's a barn in there, it's not included in the rental. Meisve, here comes a kasha back on the halacha of Rabbi Yesi, Rabbi Chanina, who says that when an item enters your premises, you are going to be kind of that item, as though you're physically holding on to it. Meisve, here comes a kasha. Regarding the mitzvah of Shiloh HaKain, or you send away the mother before you take the offspring or the eggs, right? Suppose we have these birds, these yoinim, these doves, who are considered yoini shoivach, meaning they're not really owned by this person. They're sort of wild, not really domesticated birds, but they come back every night to the birdhouse, or come up to your attic. So basically, they're sort of, they park themselves in your premises, but they don't really, you don't really own them, right? Chayavos b'shiluach. So there is a mitzvah of shiluach hakein, right? If you want to, take the offspring, you have to send away the mother. V'asuros begezel v'pnei darkei shalom. And likewise, a random person shouldn't be taking these birds away from you. So although technically you don't really own them, but in order to maintain peace and harmony, Chachamim u'mesakein, this halacha, they forbade people from taking them away. Asks the Gemara, 1 second. V'im isa laha. If we're going to follow that route, the Amar Rabbi Yisrael Chanina, that one's property is an extension of himself, even without him knowing, right? So we have a very fundamental question. Why at all are we obligated in doing shiluch hakein, which only applies to hefker birds, non-owned birds? Kari kan, let's apply to this case the pasuk ki kari. If you randomly encounter a non-owned bird, a hefker bird, then you do shiluch hakein. Prata mezuna, as opposed to a bird which has been designated, meaning it's owned by an owner, owned and available to him, that doesn't require shiluch hakein. So these birds, likewise, right, are owned. He had assumed ownership on these birds since they were sitting in his chatzar. So why do you do shiluch hakein? Amar Rava, Beitza beitzias rubahu dechayvalo. Says Rava like this. Listen to this. Talking about the eggs, right, produced by these birds. As soon as the most rive of the egg leaves the mother bird, hu dechayvalo b'shiluach. At that point, shiluch hakein gets triggered. You have most of the egg here, then we apply the mitzvah of shiluch hakein. Before you take it, you have to do shiluch hakein. But it's still a step before the property owner acquires them. He only gets them. It only can belong to him once it lands on the floor of his attic or on the floor of his birdhouse. So there's that sort of interim stage, it's sort of no man's land between one stage and the other. And at that point, it's not yet owned because it hadn't yet landed, but it's already considered enough of an entity because most of it was already laid, and you need to do shiluch hakein. And that's what the Brisa is speaking of. When the Brisa requires shiluch hakein, that's speaking at this point in time where it hadn't yet landed on his chatzar. If that's the case, okay, I understand you need to do shiluch hakein, it's not yet an owned entity, and okay, but why does the Brisa say that you shouldn't take it as an issue of stealing? Why is there an issue of darkei shalom? I mean, he didn't acquire it at all. He wasn't zeicha. It's still connected to the mother. A'iman. Says the Gemara, you're right, it's going even on the mother itself, because the fact is the mother is also coming back and forth, and he's sort of expecting it to return every night, and he sort of perceives it as his property, as his possession. So even though technically he hadn't yet actually acquired it, it's not in his chatzar, but the fact is, Rashi says, Daitoi shel bala shevach aleim, the batuachu the chayzrim l'm kamen be'erev. He knows they're coming back. He expects them to come back every night, so he perceives it as his, and you shouldn't be touching it. Another teretz can be lo'il ma'beitzim. Perhaps when the Brisa discusses keeping away because of darkei shalom, it's specifically on the eggs. The question was, it still hadn't been fully laid. Yeah, even so, once it's mostly laid, daite ilave, he's already focused on it. He's already expecting it. So keep away, don't make trouble. Says the Gemara, V'hashta da'amar b'yuda marav. Okay, so we answered the question, right? A chatzar typically is kaina, but here, I was speaking before, it was fully laid, so it's called yikare, it's still, chayiv and shloch hakein. Nevertheless, there is a mitzvah, there is an union of keep away from interfering with his perceived property. You don't want to, create. Also, Liz goes bebetzim. Now we have a new halacha, the name of Rav. One is not allowed to. Bizoicha, the eggs that are being laid, calls man sha'im revetzes aleim. So this pertains to shloch hakein. Right? A person is not allowed to make a kinyan. Right? Basically, what he's saying is, before you kaina, anybody, we're not talking about a dispute between a landowner. You see a random bird laying an egg, you should not be zoicha before you do a shloch hakein. Not allowed to do that. Also, this case of beitzim calls man she'em revetz aleim. Shenema shalech esaim, shalech shal esaim. First, you have to shoo away the mother. V'hadar esabarim tikalach, and then you take the offspring. So once we have this as an established halacha, let's go back to the brisa. Birds lay their eggs, right? So nobody should be taking them. There's a darkei shalom issue, and you have to do shloch hakein. The question was, well, if the chatzar typically is kaina for a person, so then it's automatically yours, and it's no longer eligible, right, for shloch hakein, which only applies to a hefker. Here comes an answer. Based on this halacha, we can now resolve that question. Afilu teima denafel chatzeret. Let's speak pretty straightforward. Simple case. The brisa is referring to an egg which was dropped. It was already dropped down on the chatzar. But I'm still not zeicha. You know why? This is different than a regular case of Rabbi Yehuda, of a Metzia, or whatever. Here, basically, as we said, the chatzar is an extension of oneself, right? So whenever I have the ability to be zeicha, so then we say, okay, your ability, right, so to speak, extends to your chatzar as well. Chatzir is zechilei. But here, in the case of the bird laying an egg, you're not allowed to. Right? We said you're not allowed to be zeich until you do shloch hakein. If you're not allowed to do this, kinyan, before you do shloch hakein, chatzir nami lo zechilei. So likewise, your chatzir can't be zeich either, because it's going against the halacha of the Torah. So it's not really yours, and therefore you can fully understand why the mitzvah of shloch hakein applies, because it's still hefker. If that's the case, asur begezel. So let's try to understand the next line of the brisa. Okay, we understand why shloch hakein is mandated, but a random person shouldn't be coming over and snatching these items because of darkei shalom. It seems to be the whole issue. Darkei shalom. That's it. Well, either shalcha. If this new fellow Shimon who comes over and notices does shloch hakein to enable himself access to the eggs, gezel ma'alyu. So at this very point, once shloch hakein was accomplished, the eggs are now mutar. So guess what? It's already sitting in Reuben's property. So Reuben is now kaina. The impediment is gone, right? The barrier is gone. What was holding him back was because it required shloch hakein. But once Shimon did shloch hakein, so now the eggs revert to Reuben's ownership. So now min haTorah belongs to Reuben. Gezel ma'alyu. This is true stealing. Idolei shilcha, on the other end of Shimon, who discovered these eggs, did not do shloch hakein. Well, before you can do anything, he has to do shloch hakein. So it's not just a matter of darkei shalom. Halachically, he shouldn't be taking these eggs. So why is it just an issue of darkei shalom and not more than that? Well, says the Gemara, Bekatim was speaking about an underage, a minor, the lav b'shluach, he doesn't have a mitzvah of shloch hakein. So by him, it's just an issue of darkei shalom and no more. Lav b'shluach, well, katan bar darkei shalom. So then why is he required to abide by the laws of darkei shalom if he's a katan? Katan bar darkei shalom, yeah. You're right, the child himself is not obligated, but the father who notices his son discovering these eggs, he has to ensure that the child doesn't take it, he has to return it to the owner because of darkei shalom. So bottom line, we had a Mishnah that the zevel belongs to the zevel found in the chatzar, which was not included in the rental, belongs to the landlord. And this is based on Rabbi Chanina, Chatzer shel Adam kohen l'shlem midaitoi, unless it's not a Chatzer mishtameres. We discussed the case of the koilet mina avir. That waste belongs to the soicher. We had several pshatim. Either he was madbik, kli b'shuli par, or it went through the avir and it wasn't sefer lanuach. And then we moved on to the halacha of shloch hakein and explained the brayso accordingly. It says the Mishnah, Masker bayis l'chaver l'shana. Ruvain leases his home to Shimon for a year. Okay, 12 a dinar, right? Okay, 12 dinars zahav, 12 golden coins for a year. And lo and behold, the Bezdin, the Sanhedrin, added a year. They made it into a leap year. Okay, and it's Abra Shana. Now we have 13 months. Apparently they're working with the lunar months, right? So, question. He thought it was going to be 12 months. And now he's renting it for 13. Is it included? Does he have to add to the price? Nisabra Shana, Nisabra L'Soicher. Shimon is all game. He doesn't have to add for that extra month. Rashi says, La Yarbel Ischar Chodesh, Sha Ibur Chal Shana. The Ibur year month is included in the year. But let's say instead of establishing it as an annual, as a rental for a year, it was going to be a monthly rental. Okay, 12-month rental, and they discussed months. So now there's an extra month. There's an extra month of rent as well. The masker gains on the extra month. There was a story of such in the town of Tzipori. A fellow rented a merchat, a bathhouse, 12 coins for the year. 1 coin per month. And Ubamasa Lifnei Rabban Shimon Gamliel. And there was the story that there was a Chodesh Shana Mu'beres, and the case was brought to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, Rabbi Yesi, and they said, you know what, split it down the middle, 50-50. V'amru yachleiku, is Chodesh Ibur, paying for half the month. Masa Lister, when does a person bring a story to contradict himself? Here we say, okay, we have a story about 50-50, but that was never discussed in the Mishnah. It was either one way or the other. The Mishnah is meant to be learned as though it's missing some words, and we read it like this. We have 3 options of the way they could have organized this rental. Yearly, in which case, if it became a leap year, it's included. It's part of the year entity. Monthly, then he has to add for the extra month. Right? So those 2 scenarios were depicted in that Mishnah. But there's a third case as well. If, their discussion, the terms of the agreement wasn't so clear cut. They referenced both points of reference. If you remember, let's say he told them 12 coins for the year, so it's like an annual rental. But then he added dinar zav l'chodesh, 1 coin per month. So now, which way do you go? Is it annual or monthly? Since we're unsure how to deal with this, so each side has a valid claim. So you split it. On that, we have a story to support the concept of yachleiku, b'tzipuri, b'echad shesachar merchatz mechaber, b'shneim asur zuvim l'shana. So this was a reference to the annual arrangement. But they also made a monthly reference. Medina zav l'chodesh. So now we have 2 ways to look at it. Do we include the extra month because it's part of the annual arrangement, or do we add for the extra month because it's an extra month? They said, in this case, the only solution is 50-50. If I would have been present when that case was discussed, I would have granted the landlord full rights to the extra money. Why? What's Rav's point here? When we have 2 conflicting verbalizations, we follow the last thing. That's what determines. So here, it was in this order. He said annual, and then he said monthly. The second thing that he said, the most recent thing that he said, that's what determines the halacha, the concluding phrase. Right? That is what carries the day. Okay, so therefore Rav says, since the last thing that was mentioned was the reference to the monthly package, so it's a monthly deal. Every month gets a coin. If that's all Rav is saying, adopt the last phrase, adapt the last lashon. Rav already told us this point elsewhere. In the Shiva of Rav, they say like this: the following halacha. So he wants to know how much is this car. He says, Istira is like a cheaper coin which is comprised of 96 prutas. 100 prutas. So he's sort of contradicting himself. First he's referencing an Istira, which is only worth 96, and he says, 100. So how much does he have to pay for that? What's the price? The answer is 100 prutas. Because that's the last thing that he said. Istira. If it's said in the reverse, 100 coins, and he said Istira, which is less than 100, so you follow the last thing that he said, Istira. And this is Rav telling us, Tfois Lashon Achron. So that's it, we know that already. Why does Rav have to repeat his point in reference to our story with the rental as well? Well, says the Gemara, if only for that story with the coins, I wouldn't necessarily understand that in fact Rav hold to Fais Lashon Achron. I would say, I would attribute different reasoning to that halacha. I would say Perushikam Afarish. Perhaps we should not even perceive those two conflicting expressions, the Istiri and the Me'amona, as conflicting expressions. No. He's just explaining himself. Rashi explains like this, that perhaps all he was saying was, look, let's go through both options there. One is Istira Me'amai. So I'm asking for a Istira, which is called a Sela Medina, a cheaper coin, which typically is comprised of 96 prutas. But I don't want that. I want a better coin, a coin which is worth 100. That's what he's saying, right? I want a large jumbo size Istira which has more weight, which is worth 100. He's just explaining himself, and that's why he deserves 100. In the second case where he said Me'amai Istira, maybe he meant like this: I'm asking for 100 coins, but you can bring me rubbed out, worn down coins which are really only worth like an Istira, a total of 96. Basically, he's expounding on what he said, and that's why we don't even perceive it as a contradiction. We just take it at face value. Pirusha kama farish. I was just explaining himself. Kamashmon. That's the point of Rav over here. No. In the case of the rental, there's no explaining. It's either annual or monthly. Right? Here you can't say he's just explaining himself. It's one or the other. And the fact that Rav says, if I would have been at that place, I would have heard the case out of Paskind that the landlord gets the whole thing, because we look at the Tfois Lashon Achron, that's what carries the day. It's the monthly expression which is binding. That's because he holds Tfois Lashon Achron. So that's Rav's opinion. Okay. Shmuel Amar. Shmuel is not clear about this. He says, I'm not sure, we have conflicting expressions. Which one, determines? Is it the Lashon Rishon, the first thing that you say? Or is it the last thing that you say? We're not sure. It's a suffix. So what do we do when we have a suffix? We leave things status quo, right? Right? The karka, belongs to the owner. The money belongs to the renter. Everybody keeps what they have, right? So when the Mishnah speaks about going halfway, why? Why go halfway? Look, if it's the first day of the month, right, he hasn't yet used that last month, so he has to get out of there. It belongs to the owner, who's the muhsik. If the month's up, it's just a question of extracting that rental fee. Well, the seicher has the upper hand because he's holding the money, right? So when the Mishnah says Yachloiku, apparently we're speaking about a unique case where it's right in the middle of the month, right? It's at the halfway point. Ushmuel Amar Baba Metzia Chodesh Askinon. It's right in the middle of the month. So now, regarding the last 15 days, the first half of the month, the renter could just say, look, I'm holding on to my money. We're not sure what happens, so you can't force me to pay. But regarding the second half of the month, he's got to leave. Because the karka belongs to the landlord. He's a muhsik on the next half of the month. But suppose this question would have been raised at the beginning of that last month. The landowner is fully victorious there. He's a muhsik on the karka. Conversely, if the month is over and it's a question of extracting the rent, then the renter, Shimon, wins the deal. Asks the Gemara, is that true that Shmuel doesn't necessarily adopt the second expression, because you see Shmuel is not sure, he's a suffix in this regard? In this halacha we find that Rav and Shmuel both seem to agree. Because look, Kur b'shleishim ani meichelach. A fellow is selling a huge amount of grain. Kur has 30 sa'ah, okay? So he says, I'm selling you the whole kur for 30, okay? $30. Kur b'shleishim ani meichelach. And he changes his mind midway. Okay, he started, delivering the material, and midway he had to change of heart. Yachal achsubay, he can change his mind. Afilu b'sachran, even up until the last sa'ah. Rashi says, even though the buyer is taking possession, a sa'ah at a time, doesn't matter, because it's all one entity, it's one transaction. Until it's fully delivered, it's not done. On the other hand, if he says, Kur b'shleishim sa'ah, Kur b'shleishim sa'ah b'sela ani meichelach, suppose he references both amounts, the collective amount, and then he breaks it down. He says, look, I'm selling you a full kur for 30. But he also mentions that it's going to be sa'ah b'sela. Right, a kur has 30 sa'ah. So the kur is for 30, and basically every sa'ah within that kur, I'm selling you for a sela, ani meichelach. So now he's sort of splitting it apart, making it into 30 separate sales, one being interdependent of the other. So rishon kana, here it's different. As soon as the buyer takes one saw at a time, he's kind of that saw. And this is Rav and Shmuel speaking. Apparently, when we have conflicting expressions, we follow the most recently expressed version, which is Tfais Lashon Achron, separate sales. Some time in my mission with Tafis. Says the Gemara, no. Perhaps Shmuel is not sure on how to go on this. But there, the fellow is already Tafis. He already took possession. You can't take it away from him. The same like by us with the rental, as we explained. It's all a matter of who has it in his possession. So far we have two tracks here. We have Rav track, Tfais Lashon Achron. We have Shmuel who says it's a suffix, it's about the muhsik. Rav Nachman Amar, he takes it a step further. He says, I'm not sure. Tfais Lashon Rishon, Tfais Lashon Achron, in the case of the rental, 13 months, I'm not sure who's meant to win. But he takes it a step further. The landlord wins. Because it's a suffix, we say karka b'cheskas ba'aleo kayemes. Property is in the hands of its owner. Listen to Rashi. Three lines into the wide lines. Rav Nachman Amar karka b'cheskas ba'aleo imedes. V'afilu ba b'seva chodesh. In contrast to Shmuel, who says, well, if it's the end of the month, the seicher walks away rent-free. No, says Rav Nachman, even if it's the end of the month. Kulei l'mas, the landlord wins. He has a right to collect that rent. You know why? Look, let's face it. The uncertainty was not really generated now. It was an ongoing, perpetual state of uncertainty. Was the 13th month included or not, right? The suffix happened at the beginning of this last, 13th month. Leave the land, the property, in the hands of its owner. Meaning he's the muhsik. Reuben is. Which case it turns out that Shimon resided in something which is technically, halachically, considered Reuben's. And certainly he has to pay for it. Says the Gemara, the Gemara at this point didn't really understand fully what Rav Nachman was saying. So you mean to say in the case where he first spoke about the collective annual deal and then he said monthly, so you look at Lashon Achron and he has to pay for the extra month. Is that what Rav Nachman means to say? Hainu the Rav. So he's exactly repeating Rav's point. Tvois Lashon Achrein. So there's no machlokes here. What's the point of adding Rav Nachman's shita? No, says the Gemara. Va'afagav da apech meipach. No. It's not a question of sequence. What was said first, what was said last. No, that's not the point. Even if he would have switched it around. First he spoke about the monthly, and then he spoke about the annual rate. Doesn't matter what was said first or last. The fact is, there's an inherent uncertainty here. We're not sure how to deal with the bottom of the karka prevails. So we have three pshatim. We have Rav, Shmuel, and Rav Nachman. Right? Rav says Tvei Lashon Achron. Shmuel says he's not sure. So it's a matter of when we're dealing. Is it the beginning of the month, the middle of the month? It's all about the muhsiv. And Rav Nachman says the karka always belongs to the owner, and it's as though you took it away from him and you have to pay him that rent. Boy, my name Rabbi Anai. Here comes a brand new question. There's a disagreement between the landlord and the tenant with respect to whether he paid the rent. Right? A new, totally unrelated discussion. Soicher Amar Nosati. Shimon the renter says, I paid your rent. What do you mean? I paid up the rent. The landlord says, I never got it. Who is meant to prove his point? Who has to prove his case? The renter, that he didn't get it, that he paid, or the landlord, that he did not receive it? Emas, now, where are we holding here? Is it still within the month? In those days, you would pay the rental fee at the end of the month, right? So if it's still within the month, Tanina, we have a Mishnah to shed light on that. We'll see in a minute. If the time is up, the rental period is up, Tanina, that too was discussed in the Mishnah. Just now we have a Mishnah like this regarding redeeming the firstborn, right? The pidyon haben to the b'char, to the kohen. Mesav, let's say a father passed away. The son is now a grown man. I'm not sure that my father do pidyon haben on me or not, right? We have no idea. So it depends when he passed away. The father passed away within the first 30 days of the child's birth, in which case he was not yet obligated in pidyon haben. So the assumption is he did not do pidyon haben. That's the working assumption. He can go with that. Unless you can prove otherwise. Right? Rashi says some neighbors will say, right? So bottom line, you assume that it's that you're chayiv. But if the 30 days are up, there the assumption is that you were redeemed. We assume that the father fulfilled his obligation. And here Rashi says, Ashiyam means the neighbors will tell him, we know for a fact, Shalanifta, he was not redeemed, your father told us, whatever. Let's compare it to the case of the rental. Within the rental period, the assumption is you didn't pay the rent. After the rental period is up, the assumption is you did pay. Right? The question pertains to the day of, right? The last day of the month, which Rashi says is the zman to pay the apartment's rent. So the question is, is it assumed, is it common that a renter would, be so efficient and exercise proper responsibility and pay up on that day? Or do we say no? Typically people linger, and chances are you didn't pay it. So Rabbi Yechon responded to the question with another Mishnah. Sacher, let's say a fellow was hired to do a job. Okay, Sacher, Bizman, Nishba. He claims he wasn't paid. So if it's Bizman, the time of, meaning he has just concluded his job, right? He left the job today. He has a right to swear, Nishba and collect his salary. Okay, so that's the halacha based on the Mishnah and Shavuos, a special takana. Rashi brings the svar of the Gemara because the Balabayis is all Torah, he's preoccupied with all his workers, he thought he paid him, and possibly he paid somebody else instead. So Chachamim entitled the Sachar to make a Shvuah and collect in that fashion. Sacharu, the Ramur, Rabbanon, Shvuah Lei. So let's make a diuk. This halacha is exclusive to a Sachar. Rabbanon imposed a Shvuah on him. Basically, they gave him a right to collect through a Shvuah, which is not typical. Typically, you can't collect with a Shvuah. Shvuah is typically meant to absolve yourself from payment, not to collect. There's a special reason here. Because typically an employer is or preoccupied, and right. So there's reason to believe that perhaps he thought he paid him, but he really didn't. But over here now a case regarding the disagreement between the landlord and the tenant. Here we just revert to standard procedure. We apply the standard halacha that the seicher, the fellow who is meant to be paying, he's going to make a shvua to absolve himself. Seicher mem b'shvua, we believe him when he swears. Rashi says it's a shvua d'Rabbanan called shvuas heses. We impose a shvua on him, which is takanas chachamim. Whenever a person denies any claims tossed his way, he has to make a shvua that in fact he paid up his rent, and he walks away with that. Okay, let's recap today's daf. Mishnah spoke about Zevel found in a chatzar belonging to the landlord. It was speaking that the chatzar was not included in the rental. Chatzar shel adam kohen shleim medaitoi. If it's a chatzar mishtameres. There's a brayta which says that the seicher can get these volim. We had two ways to explain that. We had the discussion about shloch hakein. You rent the house for the year. Does it include the extra month or not? Well, it depends how it was said. If it was discussed as an annual rental, then it's included. Monthly rental is not included. What if both were discussed? The Mishnah says yachleiku. Rab says because tfais lashon achrei. Shmuel says, well, it's about the muchzak. When we say yachleiku, it's only because he came mid-month, so half was already used, and that part you can force him to pay the rent. So that's why he walks away with yachleiku. Rabbi Nachman says no. He says that the karka is b'cheskas ba'aleho, that land is presumed to be in possession of his owner. And basically, if there's any suffix pertaining to this issue, you have to pay. And he basically is paskening not like the Mishnah. You have to pay him for that extra month. Let's say there's a disagreement in terms of whether he paid rent, right? It's a general question. Who wins the case? The Gemara concludes that the seicher will make a shvua that in fact he paid, and that absolves him. All the best to you, B'suras Tevis, and Atzlach Rav.